If you clap your hands and stomp your feet, listen up, because we're continuing the conversation on the biological basis of behavior. Specifically, we'll be discussing the basal ganglia, which is a part of the subcortical regions of the brain, and it is associated with moving and learning. Much of what is known about the basal ganglia is from studies of diseases that occurred after it's been damaged, which resulted in general loss of movement, and on the other end of the spectrum, exaggerated movement. So in particular, we'll be talking about the neuroanatomy of the basal ganglia, $50 word of saying the brain structure and the shape, the functions, as well as what happens when the basal ganglia is damaged. So let's break this down like a fraction and put it back together, beginning with the neuroanatomy. Again, this is a subcortical structure, meaning its region is underneath the cortex. It comprises of a network of complex loops involved in motor output. The main components you can see to the right, color-coded. The caudate nucleus is maroon, as well as the putamen. Once again, these are bilateral. You can see they're on both sides of the brain. The globus pallidus is bright red. The subthalamic nucleus and the substantia nigra are not identified in the picture, but they would be in the dark green and the yellow areas. Now, how information moves through the brain in this particular region is it begins in the cerebral cortex. Remember, that's the top outside, and it sends input into the basal ganglia process, and then this information sends outputs to the thalamus, which again is the relay station of the brain. So for the functions, as you can see, its primary function is movement. Mostly plays a role in controlling and coordinating movement patterns. All right. So it's not necessarily activating the muscles, but it works in the coordinating of the muscle movements. Learning wise is a secondary function, and that means it supports associative learning, also known as stimulus response or habit learning. So in other words, it makes that association when you flip a switch and a light comes on. That the basal ganglia plays a role in that. Or that when you twist the doorknob and opening the door, it makes that association or connection. So it plays a role in that. Additional functions is emotion, cognition, and eye movement. And last but not least, when a damage occurs, once again, this is motor abnormalities mentioned. So this includes coordination and rhythm of movement, not necessarily paralysis. That's when it can't move. So the muscles can still move, but there's a deficit in the movement. So once again, the basal ganglia controls movement, but does not produce movement. So this is part of syndromes. A syndrome is a set of problems compacted and identified as a group. These are the types, so that you'll have slow movement, or once again, excessive muscle rigidity. And some movement disorders associated with injuries or lesions to the basal ganglia is Parkinson's disease. As we all know, Muhammad Ali, the greatest, has Parkinson's disease, and then another type is Huntington disease. All right, so let's sum this back up. The neuroanatomy, once again, the basal ganglia is subcortical structure, involves important components. Information flows from the cortex to the basal ganglia and out to the thalamus. The functions are mainly for controlling movement and coordination. It has secondary functions, which is associative learning, as well as emotion and eye movement. And when it is damaged, it impacts the coordination and the rhythm of flow to slower movement and our exaggerated movement. All right, so here goes the references, the EPPP, fundamental steps, as well as human neuropsychology. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow me at Skelton at Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Subscribe to the Skelton Report. About to get in some really good information concerning COVID and African American population. And be sure to check out the Udemy courses. I got some courses on depression for minorities, as well as making an impact and setting goals. So that's all I got, and I'll check you on the next go around. Peace.